Before we get started, I just want to give a big thank you to Royce Bunn. This video is brought to you by him. He paid for this. He is a great supporter of mine. He's been a patron for a very long time, and he upped his pledge, and because of that, he gets to recommend a ranking video, and he chose for me to do my personal favorite top 10 standalone slashers from the 1980s. There's so many. It's the decade of slashers. It's one of the best decades of horror. There's a lot to choose from, so I decided to make some rules here to narrow it down some. But we're not only are we doing standalone slashers, but we're also talking about slashers that aren't supernatural. So no Freddy-like movies, nothing like that. No multiple killers. All right, I want it to just be one killer, not supernatural, and no giallos. I'm not going to do giallo films, nothing like that. All right, so let's get into it. And not happy birthday, April Fool's Day. I'm not going to count that one. It plays out like a slasher, but then the end happens, and you know why. I'm not going to count it. All right, it's not really a slasher to me. So let's get into the top 10, and I will be giving you 5 honorable mentions once we get closer to number 1. And at the very end, I won't talk about these movies, but I'll give quick shout-outs to other movies that I think might be worth a watch, and ones that I think you should skip. I'll warn you about some that I thought were trash. So, all right, so let's start at number 10. And I'm not going to talk a lot about these movies. I'm going to be very quick. I don't want this video to be too long. I already have reviews for all of these movies. I've already talked about these. You can find them on my channel. So number 10 is The Initiation. This is an initiation movie. There's a lot of them in the 80s. And this one has Daphne Zuniga, if that's how you say her last name, and it's got Clu Gallagher, it's got Vera Mills, and yeah, this one's a mystery whodunit, and they go to this mall towards the third act, and they're trapped at the mall. There's a killer, you don't know who it is, and there's a neat little twist, and yeah, I remember liking the characters. The gore is not really there, so this one isn't one for the gores and the kills, but the kills were fine. But yeah, it was mainly the characters and the mystery that really saved this movie in the cast. So it's a slasher worth checking out. It's got the slasher template, young kids, college age, one setting, picked off one by a mysterious killer, and you don't know who it is. And I really like the twist. So there you go, Initiation, number 10. Let's move on. Number 9 will be Nightmare Beach. Welcome to Spring Break. This movie is very, very silly. It's got John Saxon, it's got Michael Parks. This movie takes place at spring break in Florida, I think, and the killer wears a motorcycle helmet and drives a motorcycle that electrocutes his victims. There's a lot of electrocution kills, and they're brutal, people skin melting from flames, blowing towards their face out of a furnace, and there's just a lot of gratuitous nudity, some very silly dialogue. It's very corny. It's not to be taken seriously. It's so fun. And you can pretty much know who the killer is from the beginning. But yeah, I really like it. John Saxon plays a cop once again. Number 8 will go to Slaughter High. Yeah, I've seen this a couple of times since I reviewed it. I like it a little bit more. I'm not crazy about the ending. I won't spoil it, but I'm sure you know it. I really like the jester hat thing that the killer wears. It's like a mask with these bells coming. It's not really a smart mask to wear if you're wanting to sneak around, bells ringing on your head. You can't really sneak up on people if you're wearing that. But yeah, it's just awful acting, awful characters that you want to see die because they're pricks. And the kills are all very creative, unique, gory, funny, and that's what we're here to see. That's what I rank these movies based on, is how rewatchable and gory and cool are the kills. That's really what I look for in my slashers. And this one has some pretty cool kills. It's very B-movie. It's not to be taken seriously. It's got Harry Manfredini doing the score. And it's just a very fun slasher to check out. Number 7 is The Burning. This one is very praised by a lot of slasher fanatics. But my problem with the movie is really just the second half. The final chase with Alfred. I don't like Alfred as my final boy, and I don't like the copper mine setting towards the end, and the editing of the film is very bad. There's some bad day for night photography. The cinematography work, it's just very poorly made, but it's still fun. It's got the kills, it's got the Tom Savini gore. I like the look of Cropsey at the end, and I just like the mean-spirited kills, the raft scene, the score to the film. It's got a decent pace. Um, but yeah, there's just a huge gap there where there's no kills, and then they just kind of cram them all together towards the end. It's just, there needed to be more kills sprinkled throughout, and it needed a better ending, a better like chase towards the end. That was really what weighs it all the way down here. But other than that, it's a classic slasher to check out. So moving on from there, the next up I don't own, so I can't show you a copy right now, is Maniac. I haven't reviewed this one, so I lied earlier. I haven't reviewed it, but I've talked about it. I mentioned it in my top 10 films of 1980 when I made that video, and yeah, this one doesn't play out like a normal slasher, but the victims are, young, beautiful women. But this one focuses on the killer throughout the whole film. It's very gritty, sleazy, and it's interesting. I really like the fact that it's a character study, that we're focusing on the killer. He uses a gun at one point. That's not really slasher-like. Blows Tom Savini's head off. There's a good Savini gore in here, some good tension, and creepy mannequin imagery. I really like it. I like the score, I like William Lustig's direction. It's just another great classic slasher movie to check out. It doesn't play out like other slashers. It's a bit different, but definitely a classic that you should add to your collection, and I will soon. Number 4 is The Mutilator, aka Fall Break by Buddy Cooper. This movie is all about the kills. It's all about the gore. They're very, very cruel. You got a gaff going up a woman's vagina. You got decapitations. You got, motors chopping at people. All the kills are very mean and just gruesome, and very good effects here. That's really all there is to it. I mean, the acting's piss poor. It's not a very well put together film, but we're just here to see some great carnage, and that's what this movie delivers on heavily. And it's got some very silly moments in it that also kind of help the film. One character in particular, I like that this killer dreams about killing his son. I love the opening, and I love the ending. Number 4 will go to Intruder. This is the last great slasher movie to come out in this decade. This was released in 1989, and this was done by Scott Spiegel, and this has Ted Raimi and Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell as a cameo at the end. And this one, just like the last movie I talked about, is all about the kills. Very gnarly. Like, these kills look fucking amazing. There's a bandsaw kill that I have in my opening, in my horror review Sundays, I used to, and it's just, the gore is fantastic. And the final girl shouldn't have been the actress they chose. It should have been Renee Estevez, if you ask me. For some reason, there's the first kill in this movie is a cutaway kill. I don't know why they did that, because everything after that is over the top, violent, and I don't know why they chose to make the first kill like a cutaway. I don't understand that, but I really enjoy the final chase in this movie through the store. It's one location at a grocery store. You don't know who's killing. Although this movie's infamous for having marketing that shows you who the killer is. There's certain posters, and like when you stick the DVD in, I think sometimes like it shows who the killer is. The trailer shows who the killer is, so don't stay away from that. If you haven't seen this movie, stay away from the marketing, the trailer, some posters, because that you don't want it ruined for you. But yeah, so this is a whodunit. I like the killer, and I like the dialogue from that person, and I like that chase. It's very over the top and gruesome, and I just really enjoy it. So number 4 is Intruder. Number 3 will go to Blood Rage, one of the only Thanksgiving slashers out there that's worth watching. Home Sweet Home can go to hell. That movie is trash. Blood Rage, that's the Thanksgiving slasher to check out. I really like the killer in this movie. He has a twin who he frames as a kid, and his twin brother breaks out years later, and now he's like killing again to frame his twin brother once more. And it's just a very fun slasher. It's very rewatchable. Again, it's not a very well made movie. The acting is not good. The cinematography work is not good. There's some bad lighting in here. It's way too bright at times. It's very overly lit, but it's got that 80s score. It's got the 80s gore by Ed French, who would work on films like Sleepaway Camp and many more. And so yeah, you got great gore, great kills, and it's just very fun. It's very silly. It's B-movie territory, and it's very enjoyable. Number 2 goes to one of the most insane slasher movies of the early 80s, and it's a foreign production, and that is Pieces. It's exactly what you think it is. You don't need to go to Texas for a chainsaw massacre. This is almost like a giallo. You got police and detectives, and they let this college student work with them for some reason. And you got a tennis player who's a famous tennis player who's also an undercover cop, and they're trying to figure out who's killing all these young girls at this college in violent ways with a chainsaw and a knife at one point, but mainly a chainsaw. There's funny, very bloody kills in this movie. Another great opening that's very memorable, and ending. Just like Mutilator, this is another slasher movie where I absolutely adore the opening and the ending. It's a jaw-dropping ending that's hilarious and memorable and shocking. You do not see it coming. Now, before we get to my number 1, let's talk about a few honorable mentions here really quick. I got a review out for this one already, or it's on its way. Curtains. This one is loved by a lot of people. It's okay. The kills, there's no gore in the film. It had production issues. It's got some decent atmosphere. I like the setting, like the premise, the setup. It's got good acting for a lower budget slasher, but it's the kills and the gore that really weighs it down. And yeah, so really like The Mask though. Next up is a movie that is weighed all the way down here in honorable mention territory because of the pacing, and that is The Prowler. This is a movie with absolutely fantastic gore effects by Tom Savini, but unfortunately this movie is a snooze fest in the middle. It's way too slow, it drags, the pacing is terrible in this movie. So yeah, just awesome kills. It's a whodunit, and it's got just that slasher template down to a T, but the pacing is awful. So another honorable mention will be Happy Birthday to Me. Kind of like The Prowler, this one's not slow, but it's too long. This one just needs to be trimmed down some. It's got a really good score, very good mystery to it, and the final act is very awesome, very iconic, but it's just a little too long. And it's got some good kills. Not really gory, but they're creative, so that's what helps it. And yeah, so I really like this one's iconic for a reason, and one of the best posters of all time. And let me see if I'm missing anything else here from my, Madman. I don't own it, so I can't show you a copy. Madman, very cheesy. The hot tub scene, it's just, it's kind of like The Burning. It's the camp setting. There's actually kids at the camp also. But yeah, I like the legend of Madman. I like the setup, I like the setting, and it's got a couple of good kills in it. But it's not too gory, and it does have some pacing issues towards the second half. It gets very repetitive. Everyone's just constantly looking for this one guy, and they all die, and then somebody else goes to look for that person, and then they die, and then they look for that person. It's just very repetitive. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, isn't Madman a supernatural slasher? Maybe, but I was under the impression that his body was never found, so he could still be alive, for all I know. Moving on, last honorable mention will be House on Sorority Row, the original from 1983, of course. Great remake for this movie. Underrated. No one seems to like it but me. Great remake. But yeah, this one is good. Again, not really for the gore. It's not made for gore. It's got some decent kills, but nothing ultra violent. But I like the mystery of it. This one also has very good acting for a low budget slasher. It's shot well. It's got some good visuals, and I really liked the jester outfit that the killer was wearing. I just wish he wore it more. Now let's get to my number 1. My number 1 is My Bloody Valentine. This one's not ultra gory like the other ones, but this is just the better made one of the list, if you ask me. It's got a really good story, a great mystery, some good characters, creative kills, and now we actually get to see more of them. Now that it's been released, it was cut way back in the day, but now it's been, edited back into the film, and it's got some pretty good creative kills. Love the outfit, the minor outfit, the location, the final chase. It's just got everything. It's like firing on all cylinders. It's almost like a perfect slasher. I had it pretty high up in my 1981 ranking, and that's why. It's just fantastic. And this one also has a really good remake that's got the gore that this one doesn't really have much of. It's got some, but not as much as the remake. The remake is ultra gory. But yeah, so this is just one of the best slashers of the 80s. I don't know why it doesn't have a sequel. It should get one. It has a remake, but it needs a sequel. Alright, quick shoutouts for ones that I think are worth watching. New Year's Evil, Edge of the Axe, Terror Train, Island of Blood, Horror, Hospital Massacre, X-Ray, whatever. It's got multiple names. Killer Workout, Sweet 16, Aquarius. I think that one's also called Stage Fright. And I really like The Final Terror. Schizoid, The Prey, Graduation Day's fine. Final Exam's kind of generic, but it's got good characters. To All Good Night, that's not going to be for everybody. That one's also, it's got decent kills, but it's low budget gore, and it's very, very silly. Nightmare, that one's very gory. Dress to Kill, it doesn't really feel like a slasher movie all that much. There's only like one death in the whole film, I think. But yeah, just a fantastic, phenomenal movie by Brian De Palma. Silent Rage is a Chuck Norris slasher movie. It's slasher-esque. It's got slasher elements in it, but it's also got some Chuck Norris martial arts. And this one is listed as a slasher, but I could have swore it was a suicide movie, and that's Bad Dreams. Visiting Hours, I do not like. It's very boring, very tame. Michael Ironside's great in it, but that's really about it. Bad Dreams, I thought that was a suicide movie, but it's listed as a slasher, so if it is a slasher, I recommend it. The ones I don't recommend, Night School, don't recommend that one. That one's just generic. Dorm That Dripped Blood, that one's, it's got the kills and the gore, but I wouldn't recommend that to everybody unless you're a slasher fanatic. And Girls Night Out, disappointment. Visiting Hours, disappointment. Bloody Moon, I remember that one being very boring. Mortuary, again, don't like it. I like Bill Paxton in it. A Blade in the Dark, is that a Giallo? I don't think it is, no. A Blade in the Dark, don't like it. But I know people who do, so you might like it, but I don't. Cheerleader Camp. It's got Jill Tuck from Saw, the Saw movies. Hide and Go Shriek, funny reveal of the killer and like the motivation and everything, but outside of that, the movie's fucking awful. Funeral Home, did not like it. Blood Song, killer plays a flute for the most part, and it's very dumb at times in a kind of good way, but also it's just a very bad movie. I wouldn't recommend that one, honestly. Humongous, don't recommend it. He Knows You're Alone. Ghost Dance, snooze fest right there. And yeah, He Knows You're Alone, Tom Hanks, one of his first movies, also a snooze fest, very generic. A lot of people like this movie, Don't Go in the Woods, ... alone. I don't like the movie. It's just kill, 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 hardly any gore, and there's just no character setups at all. It's just like a montage of people dying. It's like, okay, I need a little bit of story here. Home Sweet Home, absolute trash. And, well, honorable mention here, Christmas Evil. This one's not like a typical slasher. This one's more like Maniac, where we focus on the killer. So if that one counts as a slasher, I would definitely, that would make my top 10 if Christmas Evil was more slasher-like, but it just doesn't seem slasher enough to make my list. But yeah, that's another good slasher movie. Psycho killer movie, I guess, if that's its own genre. Christmas Evil, check that one out. I got a review for that one as well. And there you go. That's my list. I feel like there's more out there that I haven't seen, so let me know what I missed in the comments below. What's your top 10 standalone slashers of the 1980s? Let me know. And if you disagree with my list, that's okay. No need to be a dick. Alright? It's just an opinion. But thank you again to Royce Bunn for donating, and thank you for joining me tonight. If you like what you see, you can hit this like button and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And until next time, Auf Wiedersehen.